Hi and welcome to the latest in our series of Zebra Talks, which accompanies the Taylor Vinters Zebra Project, all about the future world of work. We've had some great discussions so far with a lot of external contributors and panelists across the Zebra Project, and we thought it'd be a great idea to have a chat with some of our employment team because we've been doing some great stuff as well, particularly in responding to the government's calls for consultation in light of the Taylor View. Now, one of those consultations was all around enforcement of employment rights and remedies. So I'm here with Peter Findings, a partner in our team, who has been leading our response on that particular consultation. So Peter, can you tell us first what the broad terms and scope of that consultation exercise related to?
Absolutely. There are two aspects to it. The first is about making rights real, rather than just being bold words on a bit of paper. And then the consultation, as you say, talks about enforcement. So at the moment, and shockingly, only 2/3 of tribunal awards are actually paid. The claimant receives nothing. So the government's looking at how it can find more effective ways of ensuring that where an award is made, it's actually paid.
So effectively, there's a big barrier. People have to go through the rigmarole of bringing a claim. They then have to succeed, and then they get a bit of paper that has a judgment on it, but no actual way of getting the cash.
Absolutely.
Okay. So could you pick out maybe a couple of sort of key recommendations that the government's seeking views on for us?
Sure. So one of the big issues at the moment that feeds into this consultation, as well as some of the other aspects that our colleagues have talked about, is whether someone is a worker or not, and therefore whether they have access to rights in the first place. And there are some rights in particular that have received real attention. For instance, the right to paid holiday.
Yes, of course.
That's been an issue in a lot of the high-profile disputes recently, Pimlico Plumbers, Uber, Deliveroo, etc. Now, the consultation starts to focus on whether there are particular problems in certain industries. And the media would suggest that there is. Actually, I'm not convinced. I don't think it's just a gig economy problem. I think rather most of the UK economy is made up of pretty decent employers, want to treat their people well, not least because it's productive. It helps business. But there are a minority of businesses out there that almost seem to take advantage of the fact that it is hard to enforce rights. That's one of the aspects that it seeks views on. It also then goes on to think about the actual enforcement of those rights once it's possible to identify which rights a person has, and whether the rather complicated means that individuals have to enforce a tribunal judgment now really works. The figures suggest it doesn't, or whether a new means of enforcement is necessary.
Okay, so a couple of quite tricky issues there, and what kind of solutions are we putting forward as a firm to some of those problems?
Well, again, let's look at them each one in turn. In terms of workers being able to access their rights, as I said, I think most employers want to do the right thing. But for those that don't, the only way workers can even stand a chance of enforcing their rights is knowing about them. There was a really interesting campaign the government ran a few years ago around the reforms to workplace pensions. There was a lot of television and radio advertising.
Yes, I remember.
And it had an impact. It really worked. I think there's scope to do something similar around the really basic worker rights in the UK. And then come on to enforcement again. We've got a pretty unusual private-led system here. So it's up to the individual they have their bit of paper and then they have to go off to a different court and try and enforce it. It doesn't have to be like that, and I think we could look at the way some other countries approach this sort of thing. So in Australia, for instance, the Fair Work Ombudsman takes a more targeted approach, looks at repeat offenders, the bad employers, the minority, rather than people who have maybe just fallen foul of regulation inadvertently. I think there's room for that kind of approach here, possibly through the Gang Masters Authority.
Okay, well, some really interesting ideas there, and hopefully the government will look at those very carefully along with the other consultation responses and put some of that into effect. But Peter, thanks very much.
No problem at all.